So this new Apple series, Apple Watch X, Apple Watch 10. So next year will mark the 10th year that Apple has been putting out watches, and they want to celebrate, so to speak, with a new edition watch. Remember the iPhone X, right? It was their 10th year. iPhone 10, iPhone X, their 10th year of making the iPhone. Well, next year marks the 10th year of them producing watches, manufacturing watches, and they want to celebrate with a badass new watch. Now, what makes this badass? Well, if you are a viewer of our podcast or subscriber to the channel, you will know that we discussed numerous times. In fact, I think the last time was last week. Apple is coming out with a iPhone 17 Slim, iPhone 17 Thin, whatever they call it. It's going to be razor thin. Now, I say razor thin. I'm going to lead to this Series X, but let me get to how they're going to get to the X. So, razor thin iPhone 17, right? The traditional smartphone, whether it's an S24 Plus or Nothing Phone 2, is about 7 to 8 millimeters thick. Meaning, if you set it down on a table, that's how tall it is, right? 7.4 millimeters. The new iPhone 17 Slim, Thin, whatever you want to call it, is roughly half of that size. That's the reports that I've been given. So you're looking at a phone that's essentially half as thin as this. That is that is mind blowing. That's literally, I mean, look at where this charging port is, and then cut that in half. That's how thin the phone is going to be. So how do they get it that thin, right? So why did they make all the other iPhones this thin? Why, well, here's what they're doing, and they're going to implement this same idea on this watch. So what they've done, and we talked about, it's in the article that I wrote and we discussed, is on eSIMstudios.app. They're going to develop a new logic board. Well, they have developed a new logic board. So what is a logic board? Sorry, my allergies are bad. A logic board is essentially the motherboard inside of the device, whether it's a watch, a phone, a tablet. The motherboard is called logic board in the industry. Now, traditional logic, Apple's developed this brand new cutting edge logic board for the iPhone, for the Series X. So, big news, the Series X is going to be razor thin as well. It's going to be very thin. It's going to be half the half of the height of the traditional Apple Watch, right? So they're going to go with a razor thin iPhone, and then they're going to do this razor thin Apple Watch X. And this is how they're going to do it, is with this new logic board. So the way things are now, whether it's an Android, whether it's a Samsung Galaxy tablet, the motherboard sits inside the device. On top of your motherboard, they put the CPU. They solder the CPU, the RAM, any other components that needs to be tied in to the CPU, to the motherboard. It's a circuit board, right? If you take your phone apart, it's got all sorts of circuits in there. You can see little copper lines, hundreds of them connecting everything. Well, Apple's designed this new logic board. They're essentially, so they're stacked. Traditionally, right, as of now, they're stacked. You got the motherboard, and then you got the CPU on top with everything else. Apple has made this new logic board where the CPU, instead of being on top with all the other components, is actually built inside the logic board. So it's just one board with everything inside of it. So it's just one plane. It's not a stack. It's not board, CPU on top. It's everything is integrated into this board, motherboard. That's how they can reduce the size of the iPhone or of the watch. Now, they've patented this technology. So unless an Android manufacturer or somebody else can come up with a design that won't infringe upon Apple's patent rights, it looks like Apple might, at least for the next few years, be on top of thin devices, right? So their iPad, the iPad they just put out is pretty freaking thin, but that is not implementing the new logic board. So they can even get their new iPad down to just a few millimeters, which is insane. So that's the cool thing about this new watch, is their new logic board, right? That's how they're going to get it so thin. Now, not only is it going to be thin, it's going to be very lightweight, and it's going to have a huge display. From what I understand, it's going to have a 2-inch display. I'm sure it's going to be AMOLED, I'm sure, but 2 inches, which is considerably bigger than traditional smartwatches, I think. This new Apple, let's see. So this Series 10 watch, this Series X watch, is going to be razor thin with a large display, right? The screen length alternatives at the next era of Apple Watch will boom from... So these next generation of watches are going to go from 41 millimeter, which is the smaller size, right, to 45 millimeters, right? So the small Apple Watch X will be 45 millimeters, and the bigger version, which is currently 45 millimeters, is going to balloon up to 49 millimeters. So they can make it, remember, they're going to make it thinner, and they're going to stretch the screen out and make the bezels around the screen even razor thin as well. So everything gets smaller but bigger, I guess, internally at the same time. This should look very cool, and these are official CAD renderings right here. Computer-aided design. So it might not look razor thin here, but trust me, it is. So this is the Apple Watch X. Don't know which one this is, the smaller version or the larger version, meaning the 45 or the 49 millimeter, but they're essentially going to have the same design. One will just be a little bit bigger than the other. And again, this will be razor thin. And again, it might not show it here, but trust me, it will be. The tech they're coming out with this new logic board is just absolutely insane. Let's get into all the rumors. So that was the first look at the CAD design. I wrote that article just for that. But let's get into all of the rumors so far for this X series device. Hang on one second. There we go. Okay. So we got into the design, right? Now the bands of this is going to have a new band on it. So the way that they currently have the bands constructed and or designed is going to change as well. Where is it on this one? So look at this photo, right? You see how it wraps around on the right, up and over from the inside to the outside on the right side, and on the left side the same thing. So it'll come up over the inside of the strap, of the handle here, up and over, and then this is a magnet on both sides, so you can adjust the how tight or how loose you want it, which is obviously different from how they have it now, which is like a traditional sport watch, right, where it's a band, and then it's like a belt, right, like how you put a belt together. Well, they're changing the design, which sucks for some people because I don't think your current bands, if you're an Apple Watch user, the bands from previous years will not work with this new one. But I'm sure you're used to it now, being an Apple customer, is that they nickel and dime you, so you got to buy new crap every time something comes out, new accessories. So the bands are going to change, and they're removing the bands have something. They're not just doing that to nickel and dime you. And actually, the way that they're designing the new bands actually helps increase the amount of space inside the casing. So when you make it thinner, they're also you reduce space inside the casing of the watch itself, right? So if you have something this size, but you just make it slimmer, you reduce the area inside the watch, correct? Well, the current model, how it's designed, the way that they're redesigning these bands, or how you connect the band, is they're actually moving them outward, because at the current design, the way that the bands are actually impedes upon the inside, the internal area inside of the casing. So the new bands are going to move them out, and it creates a little extra room inside of the watch for them to put components, what have you, or to place that new logic board, super slim logic board. We will have an OLED display, right? Nothing shocking there. Logic board I wrote here basically describes how it's constructed. It's a resin lined copper, taking into account a thinner common sense board, logic board, in assisting stepped for its sturdiness, water resistance. Thinning down the logic board could permit for added inner area of different components. Yes, we already discussed that. Health features. So it's Apple Watch, right? It's going to have all these health features. Release. So the release of this, it's going to be either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. I believe it's going to be next year. There is some talk about it being released at the end of this year, and I don't think that's the case. I'm sure they discussed it, which is why that's in some of the talking points of some online publications, but I think they're going to release this next year. Possibly even later next year with the iPhone thin. Now, that's obviously later in the year, which would be a year from now, with the iPhone 17 Slim, what have you. But I'm guessing it's going to be probably first half of the year or latest middle half of the year. I take that back. Somewhere in the middle of the year. However, at the very latest, it'll be this time next year with the iPhone 17 Slim. But I expect it to be released probably not January, not January. Probably March, April, May, something like that. Possibly around the corner, right? 8, 9, 10 months away. Yeah, I love them a lot. Yeah. How's it going? Ciao. So I put Mark Gurman. He's basically Bloomberg's. He's a well-known leaker or Apple insider, I guess I should say. I got a link here to his Bloomberg article about I got some of my information, not all, but some of it here, which is why I cited his publication. So follow him. He's on all social media if you also want the latest Apple news, as well as here at eSIM Studios. Be on the lookout. iPhone Watch X. We will receive information, right? More information as time goes along. So make sure you subscribe to the eSIM Studios YouTube channel for all the latest Apple news, Apple Watch X news, Apple Watch news in the future, Apple iPhone 17 Slim, thin, whatever you want to call it. We got it.